Alright, I think this is sufficiently dry. We can put our first coat of Spar Varnish on it. So let's move this out of the way. We'll start with this box to get the dust out of it. Alright, to finish this, we're going to use Mann of War, Mann O War, and this is a Marine Spar Varnish. This is what they use on sailboats, and I have found that it does a very nice job on the hives. Now before all is said and done, I'll probably have about 3 or 4 coats of varnish on this, but it will do a couple of things. One, it's going to waterproof the hive. And 2, and most importantly for me, is it's going to make it look pretty. It's going to look like a piece of furniture out in the yard. So let's begin. This is a very good varnish. It takes 24 hours to dry, so I won't be able to put another coat on it until tomorrow. However, it will dry nice and smooth. It almost dries like a urethane. But I think that it's a little bit more clear than a urethane. It's more of a glass look to it as opposed to a plastic look that you get with a urethane. Now I have tried urethane finishes in the past, and I just wasn't as pleased with them as I am with the Spar Varnish. This just seems to do a really nice job. Believe it or not, this little foam brush does a fantastic job. Make sure, however, that you really get the varnish on this end grain, let it soak in. And there's one. Right. Controller box. And smooth it out. On this first coat of Spar Varnish, if you haven't used it before, unlike urethane, you really don't want to put a thick coat on. You want to do it nice and thin, let it dry, and then hit it with some 220 sandpaper to take away any dust or grit before you put your final coat on it. And I'll probably end up putting 2 to 3 coats before it's all said and done. All right, not bad for the first pass. We will let this dry overnight, and then we will be back at it tomorrow and get another coat, maybe the last 2 coats on tomorrow. It depends on how humid it is outside. It's been raining all day long. If the weather lets up and the humidity goes down, I might have an opportunity to get 2 coats. Alright, it looks like the first coat of varnish has dried. So we will go ahead and break this down a little bit. 220 sandpaper, very fine grit. This will help us get any dust out of the finish. Now you don't want to sand all the way through. All right, now let's open up our varnish again. These things are really good for applying varnish. Now, in the past, I've used a spray gun, and I've even tried paintbrushes, and I thought, you know, there's no way this is going to do a good job. But since I started beekeeping and since I started working on the hives, I found these at Ace Hardware. I buy them by the 20 pack, but they do a really nice job on the finish. The finish lays down nice. It self-levels. It's really a good tool, and I never thought that it would be. Looks can be deceiving. All right, second coat. Going to apply it just like we did the first. Nice thin coat. All right, let's move this one. I've got a problem with these wood chips sticking, so I'm going to go ahead and put a cloth down. Problem solved. Right. So the second coat is done. Later on this afternoon, I'll give it about 6 or 7 hours to dry. And then I'll come back, I'll scuff it up, and I'll put the final coat on, and then we'll let it cure for 24 hours. Basically, 12 hours. We'll let it cure overnight. And then tomorrow, we can continue the build. I think putting the finish on is the longest part of the build, but it gives you the most bang for your buck if you like pretty garden hives. Like I said, if you just want to paint them, or if you're using an old bee box, that's fine too. I like mine to look good in the yard. Makes me feel happy. Makes me feel like the bees appreciate it when I know they don't. But I like it. The wife likes it. When I have friends come over, they enjoy the hives as well. So I'll continue to make my boxes pretty. But if you are using a box that you already have, or if you have a box that you're just going to paint, that's fine too. I mean, the bottom line, this is about function and not form. And either way, you're going to end up with a good climate control system for your beehive, right? The fans on top will evacuate the air. The reptile lights in the bottom will heat the hive, and it does it pretty effectively. So, anyways, I'll see you in a few hours. Finish this up. So it's been about 12 hours since the last coat of Spar Varnish has been put on, so I'm going to put the last coat of varnish on this box and the other box, and then after that we'll be ready to wire this thing up. I don't know whether you can see that. That pretty looking box. It's a nice finish. Like I say, the Spar Varnish, it lays down really flat, so the brush strokes will all disappear, and this ends up looking like glass. Basically, if you've ever seen wood on a sailboat, that's what it's going to look like. And it does a really good job at repelling the water, minus the flowhive roof that I had on the hives, but it does a really good job at repelling the water, keeps the bees dry, and it keeps the finish looking good so far for at least a year outside. I've seen other folks who have put urethane on their hives, and after the first year, the bees have picked a lot of it off. So I'm happy to say that that these have withstood the weather and the bees. All right, so we're ready to start building the heat box, and what we need to do is we need to mount these porcelain light holders to the inside of the box, one on each side. But before we do that, we have to insert one of these plugs so that we can get power inside the box. And then right next to it, we need to drill another 1/4 inch hole. Now all we need to do is clear out the middle. Clean it up a little bit. Right. And there we go. So what you want to do is you want to take one of your wires, you want to cut the end of it off, leave yourself about 1 foot, and feed the wire through the hole, and then if you have a rubber mallet, you want to tap this into place. Very gently. You don't want to bend your plug, but it should be, and it's going to be a very snug fit. There we go. And what we will do is we'll just seal that up with some hot glue. You see that? We'll seal that up with some hot glue when we're done. But now, we can mount our lamp holders. And what we'll do, there's 2 ways to mount these. You can either use a screw and run it right through there, or you can run a screw into your box, put these on and twist them. I'm actually going to use the screw holes that are provided by the factory and run them in there. But before we do that, we have to cut some wire. So we have to wire these up in series. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, on the back of this lamp holder, your gold is going to be your hot, your red wire. Your neutral wire or your black wire is going to connect to the silver. All right, there's one. You don't want to torque these down too much. These things are cheap, as you'll see when you purchase them from Amazon. They're cheap. To be honest with you, I don't even know how the factory makes money selling these things. They're so cheap, but they're effective. They work. It's just old technology. The world's moving away from it. Makes it a bargain for us. All right, this is going to be the one on the far side. I'm going to take the other end and we're going to run it into one side of the box. This time we're going to use all 4 leads. Just like before. Now, I'm going to flip this around because I have this, no, or not. Flip this around so that you can see. Let's see if I can arrange something here. Give you a better look inside the box. Now, just like before, we're going to put the red on the brass, and we're going to put the ground wire silver. All right. There's one side and there's the other. Now let's get some sheetrock screws, and I know those will work because I've used them before. It's your 1-inch sheetrock screws. And we're just going to right into the bottom of the box. side right to here. Sheetrock screws. All right. Now we'll just clean up the wiring. All right, and there we go. That is a finished heat box. To show you what it's going to look like when it's done, let's go ahead and put the lights in. That's it. That is how we heat our hives. Now to finish it up, I'm going to go ahead and put some hot glue in here so that when we're done with this box, we're done with this box. See if our glue gun is hot. It is. All right, now let's put some in from the other side. Ooh, stringy. I feel like Spider-Man. All right. All right. Now, if you'll look, I don't know whether you can see that or not. Get some light on it. There we go. It's been sealed with hot glue. That's going to keep it waterproof. And this box is done. Now for the fun box. We'll begin by drilling a hole for our power plug. This is what is going to power the entire unit. This is what you're going to have plugged in. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the power cord. We do not need this end. Alright, so what I've done is I've marked these. One for a 1/2 inch plug. The other one for the power for the box. So let's begin. Okay. Perfect. Alright, just like we did with the other box, what we want to do is take our X-Acto knife and clean that up a bit. Alright, so now, this is very important. Now I'm going to replace this cord, and I'm going to give you a link for a longer cord. This cord is much too short. You need like a 12-foot cord. This is like a 6. But what you want to do is you want to tie a knot on the inside of it. And then you want to tie another knot on the outside. And the point, or the purpose of this, is to make sure that in the bee yard, if you trip over this cord, you're not going to disconnect the electronics on the inside. What you will do, however, if you trip over this cord, you'll knock your entire beehive down on yourself and you'll be stung like 1,000 times. So you don't want to do that. Now that we've got these in there, it is time to put the controllers in. Now you have to be very careful with these. You don't want to damage them. But you have 2 controllers. You do have a wiring diagram on the back. And there's a small cover that you use to cover your wires. Now, I will tell you it's important to cover your wires. And I'll show you why. Because last week, when I gave my bees pollen patties, and the flowhive was leaking. I dropped water down into the top of the hive, and it actually hit this and shorted the entire thing out. We do not want to catch our bees on fire. Had I left this on there, I would have never had that issue. So we're going to make sure to replace this cover when we're done. All right, set this inside so we don't lose it. That is one of them. Something else we want to do is we want to take these off. 1 and 2. I'm going to slide one into that side. Save these. This box is a bit damaged. I hope the controller is not damaged. Appears to be okay. They each come with a thermostat. Thermostat from the other one. So let's go ahead and get this installed. And what I'll do is I'll wire these up and then I'll show you how I wired them. That's probably going to be the most effective way to do it, as opposed to just watching me wire this thing up. It may be damaged, but I guess it's not. Put that in there. And very gently, rubber mallet. We want to make sure, because this is a tight fit. Now you can loosen this fit up. I like them nice and tight. So I'm just going to tap them in, making sure to avoid the buttons. I don't want to hit the buttons. The word of the day is finesse. And there we go. Now that our controllers are in there, I'm going to clean up my bench before we go any further so that we can actually function here. Okay, so now what we want to do is these orange clips that we took off, we're going to reinsert these. What we're going to do is we're going to slide them along the bottom. Again, you want that side facing down. Now that we've got the controllers in place, the wires in place, I'm going to go ahead and wire this up. When I get done, I'll show you how I did it, show you exactly how the wiring is done. The diagram actually comes with the kit. So it's not too difficult, it's just tedious, and I've got to determine my placement in here. So, I'll see you in a bit. When standing in the back of your hives, the controller on the right is going to be for the heat. The controller on the left is going to be for the exhaust fans, for the cool. Now let's take a look in the back and see how they're wired. Alright, so let's take a look. Here's where our power is coming in from the wall, right? So you've got a hot side and a ground side. Black and red. Each one of these we're going to split into 2 leads. We're going to power this device and power this device. We're going to provide a ground to this device and to this device. So if we look, let's follow the hot wire first, because the majority of the wiring on this is for the hot wire. The only time that you're going to put the ground wire in this unit is on the first 2 leads. This is what actually powers this device. Everything else is going to be hot. So we have the hot wire coming off. We split into 2 leads. One for the device itself, and one that is going to provide power to this outlet, which is going to provide power to the heating unit below. Okay, so we have hot coming in, split it off to hot going right here, and this is for heater. You'll see where it says heating and cooling up here. We're going into the heater side, and then we're bringing hot out of the heat side and bringing it down to the bottom box. We're bringing the ground wire, it's this one right here. The ground wire is coming into this box, and the only place where you connect ground to your controller is right next to the hot wire. Power supply, 110. Hot, ground, that's it. You're going to split the ground. The other half of it is going to go right down to your heating box. It's going to split the circuit. So when this controller determines it's time to turn the heat on, it's going to provide power. You're continuously providing the ground state. So this is going to switch right here. It's going to wake this power line up. You've already got ground running down to your heating box below, and this is going to provide the power. You're going to complete the circuit and you will have heat. We're going to do the same thing on the cooler. The only difference is we're not going directly to the fans, and that's because these fans all come with this, an AC adapter, which takes this down to 5.5 volt from the 110. So we do the same thing. We run power. We split the power into two leads. Power into the hot side here. Power into the cooling. These are the last two. We're going to run power into the cooling side and another hot out of the cooling side. As we did with the heating side, we're going to bring the ground wire over. The only place on this controller, just like the other one, that you're going to connect the ground wire is going to be right here, next to the hot. The other one you're going to split off, and it's going to run all the way down here to this outlet that we have in the bottom. When this circuit completes, that will provide power to this outlet, which will power your fans. This wire is your thermostat. Plug in the hot and the ground right there. The thermostat is going to go through the bottom with some hot glue. And that's how we wire it. So give me a moment. I'm going to clean this wiring out a bit, and I'll show you the final product there. Alright, so we have a semi-clean bench. These are the finished products. Below, we have our heating unit. I've put a light bulb in there so that we can see if it works or not. Then this is our controller and our exhaust unit. So, first thing we'll do, plug it in. All right. The fans have automatically kicked on. So I don't know what the set temp is. We're going to go ahead and take a look. So for the cooling side, first we want to change this from Celsius to Fahrenheit. You can leave it Celsius if you're not in the United States, but in the United States we use Fahrenheit, and that's where I'm going with this. So you hold down the set button. That's the TS for temperature set. I believe that's Celsius or Fahrenheit. So we'll hit the set button again. We're going to change that to Fahrenheit. And we'll hit off. 63 degrees is the default. Actually, 63 degrees is the current temperature inside this box. Let's do the same thing here. Set. And we want to go to Celsius Fahrenheit. Set again, and we want to change that to Fahrenheit. All right. So we've got the thermostat, the thermometers below the deck here. Here we go. And let's let them regulate. All right. So this is 63.1, this is 62.4. They're close. Now we have the ability with these units to calibrate them a little bit within 1 degree. So now let's do our set point. So let's set this to start cooling when we're at 60. Set that as our threshold. Temperature set. And we want that cool to 60. Plus or minus 3 degrees. All right, I don't know whether you could hear or not, but the fans have just cut off. Because I told this box that I want it to start, I want this to keep the box cool down to 60 degrees, plus or minus 3 degrees. If this goes up to 63 degrees, the fans are going to kick back on. Now, let's say that I want to heat this box to 70 degrees. So let me change the fan setting. I want this to cool until I hit, I don't know, 75. $75 degrees. That's the new set temp. When this box gets above 75 degrees, the fans are going to turn on. Right now we're at 61.9. Let's say that we want to heat this box until it gets to, I don't know, 67. And before we do that, we're going to have to make a small connection here. There we go. We'll bring this back so that we can see the light. All right, so we want to heat this box until it's 67 degrees. Temperature set. $67. And the heater should be on, but I'm not seeing. Oh, the heater's on. This light bulb's just burned out. So what we'll do is we will just watch it heat up. Keep an eye on this one. I didn't set the plus or minus on this one. Let's do that really quick before we get the temperature. It's 65.1 right now. Temperature set right here. Say within 3. All right, so 67 degrees. It's going to shut off, and it will not start heating again unless it falls 3 degrees below, which is 64 degrees. So I don't know whether you noticed or not, but it stopped heating. The way that you can tell whether or not it's heating, see that dot? It tells you whether it's heating or cooling. Now this one says that it's heating, but it has no way to heat because it's not connected to a heater. This one, the heat indicator has turned off. This tells me that they're working. We can go into the set temp, and we can turn this up to 75. Turn this up to 100 if you wanted to. The heat indicator came on. Now the heat lamps in the bottom are on. Now remember, we set this cooler to turn on, I believe, at 70? 75. Let's turn that down to 70. So at 70 degrees, these fans are going to kick on and try to evacuate some of that heat. Now as soon as this indicator reads 70 degrees, those fans should cut on and you should see the cool indicator light turn on in the upper left hand corner. Oh, it's got to get to 73. I forgot I gave it a plus or minus. So when it reaches 73 degrees, the fans will turn on. All right, at 73 degrees, this should turn on. There we go. Now the system is going to try to exhaust the heat until the heat reaches 70 degrees. Now it's not going to be able to do that because at this time the heater is running as well. So let's turn the heat. Set point. Down to 65. That's what I keep my beehive set at. Now we're going to calibrate this because it's about 1 degree too high. CA for calibration. I want to go -1. There we go. 74.7 to 74.9. One more thing. Something very important. This is a diffuser that I've built. I suggest you build one too. And what this does is this sits above the heat box and it allows the heat to be evenly dispersed up through the hive. Now the way that I determined that I needed this was last month after I put these boxes on, the very next day it was very cold outside and these heaters had been running all day long, and I noticed that some of the honeycomb from the brood chamber was melting. Now, even though the hive temperature was 65 degrees, down at the bottom it was probably 70, 75, I'm not sure, but right above the light bulbs it was very, very hot. What this does is this protects the hive from the direct heat from the light bulbs. It will fill the bottom box with heat and let the heat diffuse evenly up into the hive and prevent the heater from melting any comb or harming any bees. Now the temperature is much more even throughout the hive and it's much more gradual in the way that it comes up, because you have to look at it this way. When this box is on and it's on the bottom of the hive, you may have 2 or 3 boxes before you get to the controlling unit. Well, the control unit, this is where your thermostat is. So by the time the temperature up in the top of the hive is made at 65 degrees, it's probably 70 degrees down here, maybe 75. What this will do, this will allow an even disbursement of the heat throughout the hive. And I found that keeping my hives at 65 degrees, sometimes 70 on a really cold night, is where the bees like it. Now, I've seen other heated beehives where they use heat to actually treat for varroa and crank the temperature up to 105 degrees to kill the varroa but not kill the bees, because bees apparently can live in a temperature that is like 114 degrees before they die. I would not recommend doing that with these boxes, primarily because I don't know how accurate these are, and the tolerances would be too tight. I wouldn't want you to kill your bees, but these will keep your bees warm in the winter. They will prevent your bees from clustering. The jury is still out as to whether or not it will increase or decrease the amount of food your bees require and or consume during the winter. But I do believe that in the spring, my bees should exit the winter with a very strong population so that they can get out first thing and start pollinating and collecting nectar. So that's that. I hope you got something out of it. I will put another video together that will show you specifically how to wire this. I know it's kind of confusing. It was confusing for me the first time. Like I said, they do come with a wiring diagram as well as instructions on how to operate it. But let me tell you, it's very simple, but if you're not an electrician, you're not going to understand that. So I've figured it out for you. And when you're done, it's a very clean box, very clean design, and it is very effective. So I hope this is everything you thought it would be, and then some. I know I've had fun building it for you. Do me a favor, if you build some and put them on your hive, give me credit, give the channel credit. I could always use the subscribers. I'm putting a lot of effort into the channel and a lot of effort into showing you what I have learned and learning from you and other members of the YouTube community out there. So with that said, I hope you enjoy it, and the next time you see this, it'll be out on a beehive. Have a great day.